the sun to come along and push the clouds away. Now I don't mind when it rains, cause everything needs it. But when I'm with my baby in the park, I wish it would quit raining for the sunshine.
Ooh. How sweet and lovely is that? Leo Sunship from 1980 and Give Me the Sunshine, 12-inch pressure. And welcome along to another edition of If Music Presents You Need This, Jean-Claude in Conversation. You know the score by now. We invite a guest, they choose some tunes, we talk about the tunes, and where that conversation ends up, who knows? Which leads us to this episode's guest, a lady I've known for so long I can't even count, a super talent, as warm as a ray of sunshine, and can talk for days about music. We welcome Jessica Lauren.
Hey, Jean-Claude.
Jessica, thank you. Welcome.
It's lovely to be here, thank you, in from the coast.
Did you swim all the way up?
Not necessary, yeah, I've got a car. But I could have paddleboarded. Yeah, no, I was swimming.
Up the estuary?
I was swimming on Thursday, yeah. Very nice.
Open sea business?
Open sea business, yeah.
You're a braver person than me.
Well, it's really lovely. I live by a beautiful, beautiful beach. One of the most beautiful beaches in the southeast, but I'm not going to tell you where it is because enough people know about it already in East London without me spreading the word anymore.
Speaks an ex-East Londoner.
It's a beautiful sand beach, but there's nothing to see. Nobody would like it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Really?
Nothing to see.
Just
drive on.
Yeah, move on.
Whitstable's nice.
So you've been keeping yourself busy?
I'm working on an album with Nick Woodmansey, Emanative. We're doing a collaboration, keys and production and a bit of percussion. And so we've been working on that for a while, and that's going to be for Alindo, going to put it out.
Okay.
So Miguel and Ollie, and I'm very excited about that. The home recording thing has really been a sort of soul saver, you know?
Good.
Yeah.
So your first record?
Okay. Well,
is Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin,
yes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really need to explain why someone would want to play Aretha
or even
Franklin.
justify.
Okay, indeed. I mean, I wanted to start with something like gospel, you know, and I chose a Mahalia Jackson, but you know, we could be here for a year playing tunes
and
that
still
we
wouldn't
love.
run out.
Yeah.
So this particular Aretha.
Okay. So this Aretha was recorded, it was the start of the recording was down at Muscle Shoals.
That's right.
Was it Muscle Shoals?
It was.
Yeah. So that was where she went when she moved from Columbia to Atlantic. Obviously Atlantic coming out of Ray Charles and the soul stuff.
Aurora, dirtier sound.
Yeah, completely. So they had this, they wanted to set Aretha free and let her express herself in her own way. So they went down to Muscle Shoals. The recording session started with the house band, fantastic. Spooner Oldham, the keyboard player who played the Wurlitzer piano and everything. You know, I love that band. And it started brilliantly. So the first tune was I Never Loved a Man the Way I Loved You, I think. So they hit that groove and they knew they had a hit.
Yeah.
She hit the piano, so right. Spooner moved on to electric piano. He was booked to play the piano, but as soon as they heard Aretha's first chord, they knew she was going to be playing the piano.
Yeah.
So they started the session. It went brilliantly. That night, the trumpeter gets drunk. The guy that is the house producer who runs the label is an ornery Southern man. They have a huge argument over too much alcohol. They have a fist fight. Ted White, Aretha's husband and manager, takes her straight back up north and says, so the whole thing falls to pieces. It's a catastrophe, right? So nothing happens for a while. The tapes sit in the box.
With
one and a half tracks. So when Aretha finally comes back to it, she listens to this tape and there's basically a kick drum and I don't know what. There's hardly anything on it. So they started the tune, but they didn't get anywhere with it.
Okay.
So what they're going to do, she takes the tape and decides what to do with it. She plays the piano on it. She plays the Hammond on it. She's playing organ.
Yeah.
They arrange a vocal arrangement for it and they make this tune out of nothing of what they had there. So this is particularly personal for this Aretha, just about with this album that they made. exploded. The whole world, Aretha, it made her into the superstar she was. So this is very intimate and personal. The Franklin sisters, Aretha in control. And of course, I love her piano playing.
Always
and
have done, yeah.
Because she was the greatest singer of her generation at what she did. People forget she's a wonderful piano player.
Shall we?
I think we should.
Go on.
Take me to heart, and I'll always love you. And nobody can make me do wrong. Take me for granted, leaving love unshown. Makes willpower weak and temptation strong. Only human, you should understand. She's not just a plaything, she's flesh and blood, just like her man. If you wanna do right, whole day, woman. You've gotta be
I don't know about you, but I am covered from top to toe in goosebumps right now.
Me too.
And the studio is not cold.
Me too, really, really.
Aretha Franklin, 1967. Do Right Woman, Do Right Man. From the album, I Never Loved a Man the Way I Loved You. Atlantic, 1967. And this is we're playing it off the compilation, The Greatest Hits, because it's a nice, clean, crisp copy. Wow.
The way she uses the Hammond there, it's exactly like a horn section would have been, because they didn't have a horn
so
section
there's
for this.
stabs.
So, and it's so intimate. You can hear every, the way she put the T at the end there. It's like, it is truly intimate thing that we're
diction was
and we're
phenomenal.
right there. We're right there with her. She's so young, and it's just that is electrifying.
Your next record.
Archie Shepp.
Archie Shepp.
Yasmina. I haven't known this record for long, believe it or not, but Attica Blues I've known for a long time. And I had the privilege of sharing a stage with Archie Shepp a couple of years ago. I was sitting in with the Heliocentrics, and we did a performance of one of their albums in Paris at La Villette with Melvin Van Peebles narrating.
Oh, Jesus.
And we were on an enormous stage with a very large version of the Heliocentrics. I was playing synth nearly the whole gig, Moog synth. And behind us were projected on a 40-foot screen NASA space images. And Archie Shepp was sitting at the front of the stage center, with Shabaka right next to him, Shabaka Hutchins. And he now plays very straight ahead stuff. He doesn't play the out stuff so much anymore. But on that gig, the whole gig was avant-garde, impressionist skronk. And it was, you can imagine, he's there with his hat, super dapper as ever.
Dark suit as usual. Dark suit as usual.
For me, he is one of the great giants still with us.
Yep.
And he's still playing. I mean, there are certain people who are still making art, and some people who have every right to coast a little in their later years. But for me, his voice through his instrument is as powerful as any oral artist in the world. Robert Wyatt, I think it said that there is no sound in Western classical music tradition that bears the slightest resemblance to the sound that Archie Shepp makes. It is unique in itself, but also there is no reference from the European colonialist classical tradition. That it is so far from that. And it is so vital, it's so powerful, it's so potent, it's so political, it's so passionate, and it is a soul rage personified.
I mean, that's his entire discography you've described right there. I mean, these recordings were done on BYG France. He did 7 recordings for BYG at the same time while he was doing all those Impulse albums, Attica Blues, Rah Rah Rah. And yeah, the guy from the get-go, he obviously was very political from probably at high school, because if you look at the very first performances, he just takes that path and he never really deviates from it. I mean, even the records in the 80s on Soul Note and Black Saint, you know, these jazz albums from a time when jazz in the 80s was not really happening, he and Billy Harper and the small little crew of them, they were doing the skronking all day long. It was, you know, I love him. Absolutely think he's a true G. And perhaps not cited enough as people do when they talk about Yusuf Lateef and Pharoah Sanders and Joe Henderson. But definitely he's in that very exalted.
But also he doesn't just play. He's also singing and reciting. Yeah. He has his poetry. His music is, I don't know if left field is the right term, but he's an outside musician. It is avant-garde music. And as such, maybe it confuses people in a way that a straight-ahead player who sticks to playing the saxophone, if you see what I mean, he's more than that. His palette is so wide in his self-expression. I've made this very difficult for you, I have to say, because there's an incredibly long lead-in before he plays his first note. So they're singing and chanting and extraordinary African percussion, but it's the note. I start this record and I listen to it and I'm waiting for that note, because when it comes in, that one note that you hear, this wail is... I have no words, Jean-Claude. What about that?
Now we've created all this anticipation, we have to play it.
I think we should.
Are we ready?
Yeah.
Let's do this.
Now listen to me.
That's what you call bending notes. From the BYG album from 1969, Yasmina, a Black Woman, that was Yasmina. We're playing it off the 1979 Affinity UK release. So if you can't afford yourself an expensive BYG release, this Affinity series are from the master tapes, a little bit cheaper, and as you could hear, beautiful sound quality. I could see that you were very happy we played that.
Yes. Thank you for bearing with it because...
I couldn't disrespect our guest like that and not.
Thank you.
So moving on to your next tune.
What do we have?
Esther.
So Esther Phillips, one of the artists like Betty Levette who had what you might call a checkered career for a long time. Starting out as little Esther Phillips, very, very young, traveling on the road with a lot of grown men, traveling through the South and experiencing the hardships of traveling in the southern states as a Black artist.
Yeah, the Chitlin Circuit.
Yeah.
During Jim Crow.
But you had to get there.
Correct. And you have to go through.
And you had to get out.
Correct. Yeah.
So from an incredibly young age, she had this extraordinary life.
So why this record?
Well,
over her vast repertoire.
Well, this is her singing Gil Scott-Heron.
Good call.
Yeah. Home is where the hatred is. So a hugely important song and a hugely important version. She was extremely reticent about performing this because she had a serious long-term drug habit. And she felt she was singing her story on this record, on this tune. They recorded the whole album and she was putting it off singing this tune because it was so intimate, so personal and so heavy. And she really wasn't sure if she wanted to do it. I think she was very hesitant. And in the end, it was the last tune they recorded for the album. And I think this album is her definitive work, certainly of that era, if not in her life. And I think this is hugely important. It's a hard listen, like so much great music is, because it is so heavy and it's so personal. And also from the musician, the instrumentalist point of view, and as a music lover, this band are the quintessential session musician band. They're all kings. So you've got Richard T on keys. You've got Bernard Purdie on drums.
Doesn't get fatter than Bernard Purdie.
You've got the whole crew, the staff crew, basically, and doesn't get better than this.
Shall we?
Yeah.
Twilight, I'm on my way home. I left 3 days ago, but no one seems to know I'm gone. Home is where the hatred is. Home is filled with pain, and it may not be such a bad idea if I never went home again. Stand as far away from me as you can and ask me why. Hang on to your rosary beads, close your eyes and watch me die. You keep saying kick it, quit it, Lord, but did you ever try to turn your sick soul inside out so that the world can watch you
die? Produced by Pee Wee Ellis, engineered by the late, great Rudy Van Gelder.
Strings by Don Sebesky.
Strings
We love
by
our
Don
strings,
Sebesky.
don't we?
We love our Don Sebesky, that box
Yeah,
set.
yeah.
Oh, what a great record. She was born in 1935 in Texas and sadly died in 1984. Gil knew a thing or two about songwriting, didn't he?
He certainly did.
Damn.
He played
I kept forgetting that the opening line is a junkie. You know, it's
Walking
the opening
through
line.
the twilight. Yeah,
a junkie
yeah.
walking through the twilight.
He played my Fender Rhodes once.
Did he?
Yeah.
Gil
at the
touched
Jazz
your
Cafe.
Fender Rhodes.
Yeah. He played my Fender Rhodes. So the Jazz Cafe asked if they could borrow my Rhodes for the Gil Scott-Heron gig that he did. And I said yes, like you would, you know.
Mm.
So I set the Rhodes up. And it's quite a long story, and I'm going to cut it down for you.
Please
but
do.
Basically, he was extremely late, and it was touch and go whether he was going to turn up at all, to be honest.
As per.
Yeah, and but he did turn up eventually. And my Rhodes, I'd peeled all the Tolex, the plastic off it, many years ago. And for some reason, it was a mad thing to do. And so it looks like it's sort of sailed down the Thames and into the sea and been found later, you know, this floating wreck. They've suited each other well in terms of the vibe of it. His songs often have two chords post the Brian Jackson era. So it's D minor 7, E flat minor 7. So it goes up a semitone and down again. So basically he was playing the same chords over and over and over again. Quite hard. So he broke 3 notes on the Rhodes, which needed replacing, you know, the little tine bars that are inside a Fender Rhodes electric piano. Mm-hmm. And I was there looking like a mother hen watching her chicks get run over trying to cross the road, watching my Rhodes. So on one hand, I'm incredibly proud that Gil Scott-Heron's playing my Rhodes. That's Rhoda there. But he's also breaking. I heard the notes going. So after the gig, I said, look, I'm really sorry you're going to have to rent a piano because as brilliant as this is, I'm not going to let him, I can't watch this, you know. So I took the Rhodes back, got it fixed, you know. But
Your Rhodes has got a name. You call her Rhoda?
Rhoda, yeah.
Rhoda the Rhodes?
Yeah, because I've had
go on.
Rhoda since the 80s, you know.
Oh, Lord.
So we go back a long way.
She's part of you.
She nearly killed me. Coming back in a sort of estate car minicab and trying to get her in the house back when I used to move her around. And I'd have to sort of embrace her and go up 3 steps up in steps, you know. And I nearly fell over and they'd have found this sort of full-sized Fender Rhodes 88 on the ground with 2 arms
And a
sticking
leg.
out and a pair of feet in gig shoes sticking out the bottom at the bottom of the
genius.
steps. But the thing was, I took the Rhodes back, got the notes fixed from the service guy, Bill Dunn, who was known to everybody in the music scene that had gear that needed fixing. He did everyone's amps, everyone's Hammonds. He was like a unknown celebrity technician. I got the Rhodes back. I sat down at it. I plugged it in and I wrote a tune in 15 minutes. So the last person who'd played it was Gil Scott-Heron.
See, if you'd let him play a little bit longer, he could have done a whole album for you.
I know. I wrote a tune called Bless Your Heart.
Okay.
That's on the B-side of my second single for Soul Jazz, Serengeti.
Mm-hmm.
And it really did just... It was one of those tunes that felt like a proton went through you from outer space, and it just came out fully formed, just like that. And I always felt that somehow it was Gil had broken some notes but left something in there
present. I've
that
left a little
gave me a
present for
gift
you.
in return.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
So moving on to your next wonderful choice. Phenomenal keyboard with such a mad heritage, you know, having played for Frank Zappa and partnered up with Jean-Luc Ponty and played with Stanley Clarke and played with Billy Cobham. Of course, we're talking about the late, great George Duke. All the different albums you could have chosen, you chose The Aura Will Prevail. Any particular reason this album?
This is my favourite of his MPS era albums,
Okay.
and that's my favourite phase. And really, you know, my favourite, I don't like the word fusion, but my favourite keyboard players of the time, Herbie Hancock, obviously, Joe Zawinul, hugely with Weather Report. I love he's like the impressionist for me of electric analog keyboards. He'd be playing a solo with one hand backwards because he had one of his keyboards set up in reverse. So the high end was the low end and one was the... So you had 2 ARP 2600 synths, eins and zwei. One was for soft stuff and one was for heavy stuff. Stevie played one. This was the synth. Herbie played one.
So basically, he was able to. So he could play like. So he could play like that.
So he's playing a melody line backwards and a solo backwards, but he's not even looking.
Yeah.
He's looking over there, programming the next thing, and he played synths and keys, a wash of impressionist thing. Whereas most keyboard players, like Herbie they'd play the riff on the clavinet, then you play Fender Rhodes and bring in the strings. But it was sequential. It wasn't using the whole palette in the same way as Zawinul. Jan Hammer, who played with Mahavishnu, he's very underrated keyboard player. Wonderful. But for me, and obviously Patrice Rushen.
Love her work.
Love as well.
Great touch.
But George Duke, there was something about the combination of the way that he played, his synth playing, his solos. I loved his bluesy funkiness as well that's in there. But the textural work, his engineer, Kerry McNabb, it was Zappa's engineer, so the albums sound magnificent. And his crew of core musicians, Ndugu Chancellor on drums, incredibly expressive, elastic drummer. Alfonso Johnson on bass. He also used Byron Miller. Airto on these early albums. And Airto on percussion, who has a unique voice as well.
Always.
Airto from one click of a wood block or a noise. And Flora Purim. So I thought this would be a lovely opportunity to include Airto and Flora, who are beloved to us all on the scene in a very special way, on this particular tune, Malibu.
Shall we?
Yes.
Sound of George Duke, who played with a host of big names, including Cannonball Adderley and Jean-Luc Ponty, and of course was the keyboardist for Frank Zappa. This is from 1975. The album is entitled The Aura Will Prevail, and that is Malibu. And he's the cousin of Diane Reeves.
I saw George Duke 3 times, I think, live. I saw him with Billy Cobham.
Yeah.
I saw him with Stanley Clarke.
Yeah.
And I had mixed feelings about some of the gigs, I can't remember which one. I saw Weather Report, Shakti, and George Duke. I think it was George Duke, Billy Cobham.
Mm-hmm.
It might have been the Albert Hall or somewhere, I don't know. I was in the front row for that one. Now, that was a good one. I got in fast on that. And Shakti took the gig. Even Weather Report, they went on in the middle. 4 guys on a carpet, cross-legged.
Beat everyone hands down.
Took the gig. Amazing, John McLaughlin. But the 3rd time I saw George Duke, might have been at the Rainbow or the Dominion, something like that. And it was the Reach For It tour?
Yeah.
Now, that's an album that's beloved to a lot of people. It's very dancey, maybe Dukey Stick. We're talking that era, which is later. And that gig was amazing. So, Ndugu on drums and Sheila Escovedo on percussion. So she's playing timbales.
Pre-Prince.
Oh, long pre-Prince.
Right?
Yeah. Prince was a little glimmer in somebody's eye then.
He was an idea somewhere.
Yes, he was. And that gig was great. And honestly, that gig. And I reckon that was probably 1977, 78. And there was a moment where Sheila got on the kit and Ndugu got up and played the timbales. Oh, magical
She was amazing.
magical gig.
She was amazing.
Yeah.
Very talented
But
woman.
George G really, of all the keyboard players, kind of made me want to be a keyboard player. Wanted, and I ended up with a lot of those keyboards. So I had a Fender Rhodes and I had the string machine and I had a Moog synth and whatever. If I'd have known you'd have had an ARP synth instead, I bought the wrong one. I'd have bought an ARP Odyssey.
I was just about to say.
And the clavinet, I had a clavinet, but really his musical voice was hugely influential to me. And if you listen to that record and those records, the subtlety of his arrangement of keyboards, the layering, the way they come in and out is extraordinary and particular to him.
Your next choice.
Did I see the Thomas Crown Affair?
We got Michel Legrand.
Okay.
The late, great Michel Legrand. So Thomas Crown, one of the greatest movies of all time. Steve McQueen, Faye Dunaway. Monstrous soundtrack.
The era of Michel Legrand, that French jazz romanticism, it's very romantic music. It's sentimental music, and I'm sentimental too. And it has a wonderful jazz essence, as well as this, conservatoire, lush strings, creative arrangements. And also the other film writers of the 70s.
Yeah, Lalo Schifrin, Quincy Jones.
And Don Ellis's soundtrack for the French Connection.
Phenomenal.
With those atonal quarter-tone trumpets and the discordant strings. And as you say, Lalo Schifrin and of course Morricone, the maestro.
Il Maestro.
Yeah. So I have a lot of Michel Legrand.
Okay.
And there are some jazz dance tunes that are beloved of the jazz dance floor, Dingwalls, Shiftless, whatever. Mm-hmm. But this soundtrack, I was listening through to a few of them to choose which one. And it's like genius. It's extraordinary. This is him at the top of his game, the finest session musicians anywhere. And I think that this is actually recorded in France because they recorded the soundtrack with top session musicians in America. But then he went off and re-recorded it in France. And his albums, the French engineers sound so good. Gainsbourg wasn't wrong. Gainsbourg and what was his music?
Jean-Claude Vanier.
Yes, Jean-Claude Vanier. They would collaborate on recording and they would move between Paris and London.
That's right.
Because Gainsbourg used to have his suits made in London, in Savile Row. So if he needed a suit, they'd record in London.
Let's go to Abbey
And
Road.
then they'd go back to Paris and record.
Yeah.
But the sound of the studios in Paris or in France is extraordinary. So all Legrand's recordings sound magnificent. But I mean, this is a man who studied classical composition under Nadia Boulanger.
Absolutely.
This is a man of
Very
enormous
serious.
skill and craft and erudition in terms of his arrangement, his use of percussion and effects. He knew the orchestra and everything it could do intimately. And I'm in awe of that. As well as his what a piano player. I mean, he's playing the piano on this stuff.
Absolutely.
A great virtuoso piano player. This album is him at the height of his game, playing instrumental music. He wrote this score in a very unusual way. Usually, they give you the edit of the film and you write the cues exactly to the cues that you're given, the visual cues. He said, no, I'm going to write you the whole piece. I'll write
symphony.
you all of the, I'll write you the composition.
And then you can fit the music.
And you can fit the
images.
music. And they said, we don't do it that way. He said, look, I know, but I'll tell you what, if you don't like it, I'll rearrange it for nothing.
To your cues.
Yeah, to the cues. But do it this way. And in the end, of course, they edited the film to the music that he wrote.
Shall we? Taking you back to 1968, the Thomas Crown Affair. Michel Legrand wrote the music for this absolutely essential film. If you haven't seen it, please go out and get it. It starred the late, great Steve McQueen and Faye Dunaway as his muse in this film. And it's just an absolute masterpiece and it's slick as you want. The cinematography is amazing. The music's amazing. The film is the bomb shakalaka.
But it's sexy.
Isn't it
the
just?
chemistry
The chess
between
set.
the two of
The
them.
chess
chess game is stunning. But the thing that's really interesting about it is that he's this playboy who does perfect crime robberies for fun as a side gig. And she's the insurance investigator who's got to catch him. So she's topping him. She's the one who says, I'm going to catch you. You know, he's like, you know, so who have you got your eye on? She goes, you know, I'm going to catch you. And he laughs and whatever. But there's that sense that she's in control all the time of a man who's in control all the time. And they play this extraordinary game. There's a game of fox and chicken, and he's the chicken, and that's what's really great. And it's flick-flacks. Of course, he's driving his own dune buggy on the sand.
It's not the dune buggy or the Rolls Royce. It's the Ferrari he's driving. Great, great film. We're moving on to another record. This time we're going to 1994, and something unusual. When you gave me the list, I was like, okay, this is not what I would have expected. We're talking about The Sound of Blackness.
So I thought I ought to put something modern in.
Okay, why?
You know,
you didn't have to.
In case anyone hadn't noticed, right, everything's from the 60s and 70s, and we cut out stuff that was the 20s and 40s and whatever, you know. This is the most recent tune of everything that I've chosen for today. It's I'm Going All the Way by Sounds of Blackness, featuring a magnificent vocal from Ann Nesby, the great Ann Nesby. And I honestly feel that after she left Sounds of Blackness, she never got the material again, you know, the material that was worthy of her voice. But she's the most wonderful vocalist. And this tune is very important to me for something that's very personal. When you asked me to do this great selection of music that I was choosing, music that was influential to me, but also important to me in my life, I thought, you know what? This might be a really good opportunity to talk about something personal to me that I've never discussed publicly before.
Okay.
And something that's very private, that which is that I'm a trans woman and I transitioned, changed my life and recreated a new life for myself 33 years ago. But over the years, I've chosen to live very privately with it. It's something for my closest friends and my partners, you know, over the years that I've shared with. But I really felt strongly that this was not only private, but also, you know, I wanted my music to be about the music. I didn't want to be put in a box, have to make music about that stuff. It was my business and it was my life, my world. So I chose to be private about it, be quiet. It didn't mean that you know, I was a patron of the Transgender Film and Video Festival 20 years ago. You know, I was involved with that. I've provided music for films by trans artists like Campbell X, and very proudly so. But I definitely felt that these were two streams in the Ghostbusters sense that should be kept separate. Don't cross the streams, you know? And I always felt I didn't want that to get in the way of my musical life. But over the years, you know, it's been on my mind a lot because I'm political and I know how important it is for people to represent. And recently, with all the things going on in the world, the different oppressions of so many minorities, it's important to represent and be out there. And for a multitude of reasons, it seemed to me also, it's kind of old-fashioned. I know my musical taste is old-fashioned, but it feels a bit old-fashioned to kind of be still living my private, quiet thing about that. And I kind of felt it was important to represent. And so I wanted people to know. And so I want to thank you because you were a catalyst by asking me to do this inadvertently. I started a train of thought And there were other things that happened recently that also were playing on my mind about this. A panel, LGBTQ plus panel, Musicians Union panel online, a Zoom panel. And I was watching that, and they were talking about the lack of representation of queer people in jazz, in the UK jazz scene. And they were talking about there was a trans woman who felt very hesitant about playing jazz because she had no role models. You know, I don't know what age she is or whatever, but someone asked a question. And they had to refer to Billy Tipton, the famous trans man trumpeter, jazz trumpeter from like the 50s and stuff. And I thought, I've been here for 30 plus years, you know, doing this. And to deprive someone of the opportunity to know that
they're not alone.
Not only was it all right, but also, yeah, exactly. It's a path that you can go that way, and it's cool. And the other thing I'd really like to say is I am hugely grateful and appreciative to all the people in my life and in the music scene, in our scene, for whom my history, my trans history, has been common knowledge. You know, it's been common knowledge. But the amount of respect that was shown to me to allow me to be private about it and to keep that confidence.
Well, for us, it was all about, you know, and.
Yeah.
What? She plays a wicked keyboard.
But it was a great generosity and respect to me to allow me that privilege to be quiet about it. And the respect that I've received, I am hugely grateful. And I haven't honestly had the opportunity to say that because I was living so quietly about it. It was just a thing that people knew, but whatever. And maybe some people don't know out in the widest sense of things. But the important thing is that I can say to everybody, thank you for showing me that respect, because it is hugely appreciated. And this is kind of a big deal for me to kind of come out 33 years later and decide that I am proud to be open about it.
Well, thank you so much for sharing it with us under these circumstances. I'm touched. Really, it means as much to you. It means as much to you for saying this on film as us as the recipient, and on behalf of all the viewers and listeners.
So it's gone all Oprah now.
Yeah, yes,
which is great.
Why not?
But no, it's really it's a thing. You know, it's a big thing. And
thank you so much for sharing it with us.
Feels like the right time.
Wow. I don't know why.
I took a while to get round to it, and you know, my friends in the trans community would probably be like, "Yeah, you
finally,
you didn't have to take your time with that one," you know.
But you know, the majority of us that know you, and those that, let's say, for your life that count to you, no one. It was your business, and if you wanted to shout it from the pulpit, great. If you wanted to keep it your personal thing, for us, yeah, we knew, and it's fine. No one cares. You know, we love you for you. And that's irrelevant.
Well, it has been a while, a couple of generations, technically, over 30 years, you know.
Yeah.
But, you know, and I've represented quietly.
Fair play to you.
Which is a different, as a dear friend, Sabina said to me this week, we were talking, and she said, you know, there are different ways of being a warrior, you know, and you can be a quiet warrior too. So, you know, hey.
Shall we?
I think we should.
I think we should.
So this record is very personal to me because I went through a very difficult time. I gave up a whole life and started a new life. I lost a whole social life. I lost my family for a while. And
did you manage to put everything back together again?
Oh, well, I rebuilt a life. I walked out of a life. I had really nothing. You know, I had a standard lamp, a blaster, some cassettes, and my Fender Rhodes. I had a borrowed pallet with a futon on it that I borrowed, and I was in this little one-room short life council flat in a tower block in Dalston.
Jesus.
You know, which I was lucky to get. Didn't have a fridge, so the scaffolding outside you could put your milk on in the winter.
Yeah.
looking out over the
Genius.
shebeen, down on the corner
brilliant.
there,
Yeah.
Chester's Bar and Grill or whatever. And so it was a thing. But I did a lot of positive affirming, Everyone I meet and everything I do, and everywhere I go, everything I see are good for me. I needed a lot of positivity in my life. And this band, Positivity, their tune, and this song became very important. It was personal. And this tune is personal. When Anne Nesby sings this bridge that we're going to hear, and she comes out, it goes straight to my heart and takes me back to that time. It's directly associated with my transition and with giving me and filling me with soul and hope and positive energy for a new life and a new future.
Taking you back to 1994, produced by Jam and Lewis. I can't believe it was that long ago. Crazy, crazy. The Sound of Blackness, the ultimate gospel crew. Africa to America, the journey of the drum. And that's I'm Going All the Way, the original album version. Let's move on.
What have we got?
You got Isley Brothers.
Ah, cool. Okay,
You've got
Isley
some
Brothers.
protest business from the Isley Brothers.
All right. So in the same way that we played Aretha, and how much I would have liked to have had time to talk about Ray Charles, how much I would have liked to talk about all the soul greats that we know and love. The people that mean so much to us, whether it be Marvin, of course, or Donny Hathaway, or all of the amazing soul singers, writers, whatever. We love them. They're part of us. But there's no time because we love so much music that we just have to make some decisions. Well, funk and African-American politics. I wanted something to represent that. We had Archie Shepp, very political. Esther Phillips in a way as well, it's a socio-political importance. And Gil Scott-Heron, of course, a giant of socio-political art. And the Isley Brothers is a funny choice, It's because, they're not really thought of so much now. It's they were kind of what they were, but actually they were giants too. And they had this on the one deep funk that is particular. Obviously, James Brown, we have to say. I didn't choose James Brown. I know many people will. But I wanted to play the Isleys because they've got this on the one deep funk, uncompromising. These three, by then, older guys who are super butch, they're gangsters.
Yeah.
This is a gangster family. So you got 5 Isleys and cousin Chris Jasper, fantastic keyboard player. Yeah. T-Neck, their own label.
Yeah.
Everything Cash.
Yeah.
Magnum in the Suitcase.
Absolutely.
Office Hours Recording.
Absolutely.
With Stevie's great, I don't know if they produced this, but the 3+3 album, Who's That Lady, was produced by Margalef and Cecil.
Malcolm Cecil produced this.
So Margalef and Cecil, Tonto the Synth, they produced the great Stevie Wonder series of albums.
Minnie Riperton.
Including, Talking Book, Inner Visions, Fulfilling This They Ended.
Absolutely.
And Music on My Mind.
Absolutely.
That's at night, because Stevie's Body Clock is, you know,
Daytime.
work at night. Daytime, 9 o'clock in the morning, the Isleys turn up and they 9 to 5 office hours, work your socks off. And the 3 older Isleys, the classic Motown Isleys from Twist and Shout and, you know, all that stuff. They're there ruling the vocals. Fight the Power. They used the word bullshit. And they couldn't believe it when they recorded it. And they said to Ronnie, who was taking the lead vocal, the youngest of the 3, because there's O'Kelly and Rudy, the other 3 of the original Isley brothers. And Ernie Isley, the guitarist, who sat on Jimi Hendrix's lap and learned guitar, you know, one of the young ones.
The famous photograph, yeah.
He wrote this tune.
Okay.
They recorded this tune, I think, on the same day they recorded Harvest for the World, which he also brought to the session.
Rah.
I mean, this is a serious band.
Yeah.
He wrote Fight the Power, and when Ronnie's singing the vocal, he sings with all this bullshit going down. He said, why did you sing that? He said, because it needs to be said and it needs to be heard and people want to hear it. Fight the Power.
Time is truly wasted. There's no guarantee. Smile is in the making. We gotta fight the powers that be. Got so many voices saying all the same. Giving up all around me. Faces full of pain.
The Isley Brothers.
Yes,
Go on.
the Isley brothers.
The Isley Brothers from
There's
the album
so
The Heat Is On.
There's so little film of them. You go on YouTube, you try and find film of them in their prime like this, doing it, maybe miming on Soul Train, but there's hardly any footage. How can that be? All these great black artists who were never filmed and we don't have footage of them. It is a disgrace of historic proportions.
Absolutely.
I truly wish there was some way that we could find archives of footage of these people, these great artists in their prime doing their thing.
Yeah,
and maybe it will surface over the years.
The problem with the major networks back then, for instance, we used to do these theme nights at Plastic People every month or so. And one month we're doing a cadet special. So all night long we're just going to play cadet records. So then I decided to go on the internet. Because I got so many Etta James records. There's one piece of footage of Etta James. And when I asked a friend of mine who worked at TV, he said they would have all appeared on TV, but the films were just recorded over. Because nobody, it's another artist. Who cares? No one needs to see that. So we just record over. So even if they did a CBS special, they did a live guest appearance on, let's say, Frank Sinatra's TV show, that section would have just been recorded over. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
It's not that there wasn't footage. There was loads of footage. It's all been either destroyed or gone up in a fire or whatever. I mean, can you imagine some youngster seeing some footage of them looking like that? I mean, look at that.
I know.
G's, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah.
And you couldn't mess with these guys because they were as tough as...
No way. You know, if promoter, you decided not to pay them
you wouldn't...
cash up front, and they sent Rudy in. He was the one that collected the money.
Yeah.
O'Kelly was the disciplinarian who got the young ones to do the recording. So he kept them under control. You know, Chris Jasper and Ernie, and he was the one that was the kind of taskmaster, kept them from getting distracted. We got a recording schedule. Let's get it done.
There's money to be made here, boys.
You know.
Yeah.
So they all had their thing in the family biz, and that's, so we've got the music. We got the music. It's their label. They made sure they kept it in the family.
Yeah. Yeah. What a great story. Big fan of the Isleys, I have to say. So, sir, swiftly moving on, as they say.
Well, now this is a special record.
For you, yes.
Right. I went on Discogs just to research it and realised how extraordinarily rare this is. Just as well this isn't going out live or someone would hijack my car on the way back to London. I mean, it's not rare compared to some of your people, right? You know.
What my
well,
people?
I mean, your people, i.e. the sophisticated, rare, super rare record buying connoisseurs. Okay. Because as you know, in case you hadn't noticed, Jean-Claude, some records seem to command quite a price nowadays. The rare ones, the first pressing, the one with that particular label, the one with the thingy, with the etch on the thing that says la la, you know, exactly. Yeah. So this is a very rare dub album. And I didn't realize how rare. And this is an album I've had since the late 70s. There were a few classic, careful the way you put that on, young man. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what
I know you know how to do it.
Don't worry,
So
love.
this is Israel Tafari, which is the dub album of Israel Vibration album, the same song. There were two different versions of dubs of this. But this is very rare. I do believe that the Red label is the first, this same year pressing as the first press, which was the Red label. But I think there are three different labels, red, white, and green, probably, like it would be, you know.
I didn't think you cared about things.
No, well, it's Discogs. I was reading up on it, you know.
Bloody Discogs again.
There's no information on this album cover. There is nothing. It's just Israel Tafari and a selection of titles that have nothing to do with the titles of the songs on the the great classic Israel Vibration album.
Which I presume you've got as well.
Yeah, although funnily enough, I never heard it until years and years and years later. I only never knew the dubs.
Okay.
So from that era for me, I had heavyweight dub and there was some scientists and the Arabs, you know, Cry Tough chapters 1, 2, 3. That was Africa dub. Tubby, Lee Perry, but I believe this is a Tubby.
It is.
And honestly, every tune on this is a classic. And I was looking for another tune on what I thought was another dub album to see which one I preferred. And I realized it was on this album too. So instead of the one I chose first, the same song dub, there's this one. I can't remember what the title is, but it just makes me laugh with joy. It's so wonderful.
Shall we?
Yeah. Sorry, I can't help my superlatives because listening to music for me, this is my dream, you know. It's like sitting around playing fabulous music, sharing fabulous music with friends, and them doing the same for me. All my lovely radio show friends, people like you know. This is the best thing.
But when you were saying the superlatives, I have a problem when I do my radio show. I use the word fantastic, beautiful, incredible, continuously. And then I thought, I've got to use more different words to explain. But to be honest, exactly, when you're blessed to be surrounded by absolutely the creme de la creme of all the different genres of music, the only words you can use are beautiful, incredible, fantastic. And it's just, you can stretch that any way you want. But these records, I mean, the music you've chosen today has been absolutely top. And this bad boy, I've been waiting to hear this.
This is a serious tune.
I've been waiting to hear this.
The bass line.
Yeah, the bass line is absolutely fantastic.
And the flexi, the percussion with the dub on it is just magnificent.
Let's do this.
It's the Fat Man Rhythm section.
You know what I mean? Let's blow these speakers.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's do this. red, the black, and the green. Israel Tafari. Tubby. And what's it called? It's called Dread Heights.
Yes,
90s.
spelt Dread Hects.
Yeah.
Hects, they left the I out.
Yeah, spelling mistake, obviously. Misspell.
Well, maybe it means something.
On Ranking Sounds Records from 1978 out of the States. And yes, this is the white label. And it's a lovely thing. Isn't that a lovely colour? Isn't that a beautiful cover?
It is, and it's,
like that.
it's got that lovely wearing where, over the years, it's just the matte cover has rubbed off a little bit.
Beautifully weathered.
Honestly, yeah, but considering it's in pretty good nick, considering all of the times it was played and the state in which the people putting the arm down on the record
Ka-chonk.
were.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Indeed.
So, yeah.
Thank you for that.
You're so welcome.
And we're on your penultimate
It's not
choice.
really valuable. I don't want to give anything away to the Margate robbery, the Thanet robbery crew. Do you know what I mean? I don't want them riffing through my rack looking for Israel Tafari. That would be a shameful thing.
So we're coming to your penultimate of your choices. And I know it's a gentleman you hold very dear to your heart, Eddie Palmieri.
Eddie Palmieri changed my life.
Tell us the story, love.
Okay, Jazz Cafe. So much history at the Jazz Cafe. I was lucky in the 90s to play with some really amazing people. So I played with the Philly triumvirate of Gene Kahn, Tom Brown, and Dexter Wansel at the Jazz Cafe. Clear, I played with as well. There were others. But I went to see Eddie Palmieri at the Jazz Cafe, and honestly, I felt the hand of fate working. I know it sounds melodramatic. In those days, because I was at the Jazz Cafe so much, I could go upstairs and chill and sit down. People would be fine with that if there was a seat going. So I go to the Jazz Cafe. It's Eddie Palmieri, first of two nights. I go upstairs and someone steps up from a table and moves somewhere else. And that table, one of the little round metal ones that used to be upstairs on the mezzanine, was directly above Eddie's keyboard. So it's like, those videos on YouTube on how to play the piano? You've got a camera over their head and you can see their hands like a map, like Google Earth, right there. That table came free and I went and sat down there and I looked over the little metal railing and there was Eddie right underneath.
I know exactly where you're sitting.
This was the 1997. So it would have been with Conrad Herwig on trombone, and they didn't have a bongo player, so they had congas and timbales.
Okay.
This gig changed my life. The way that Eddie plays repetitive 13ths in his left hand, plays it like a percussion instrument. The piano is a percussion instrument.
Sorry to interrupt you. For the layman, what do you mean by the 13th?
13th is a particular sort of jazz chord. It's got a 7th. How can I explain a 13th? I don't have any theory. So all I can tell you is that the meaning of the world is not, as they said in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, was it 43?
Yeah.
It's the 13th chord, right?
Okay.
It's got a 6 in it. It's got a 7.
Okay.
And it fits under your hand like what our hands were made for.
Okay.
People think that this thumb was for like holding objects, making tools. No, it was made to play a 13th, right? It just is there for anyone who's blessed to have 4 fingers and a thumb on either hand that work. A 13th, it's just the comfiest. It's the Jimmy Choos of chords. So
yes.
Eddie plays, he'll set his steam train locomotive will be just going, Isley Brothers, whatever. We're talking one chord, Fela Kuti. You're going to stay on that for 20 minutes or an hour, and you are going to rock that chord. And inside that, you are free.
To do whatever you want.
And that's where I live. I want minimalism and simplicity. And within that, I am free to do whatever. Eddie's playing with time. He's playing with so you've got this constant like clavy type thing. So instead of a montuner, dang dong gong ging gang gong, he's da doom da chaka and everything's dancing around this central, muscular, powerful groove that's just going on, and that's where it's at. And so much of my music, the name of Fela will always stand for freedom, are built on that. When I saw Eddie down beneath me with playing the piano over down right there. I could watch this masterclass in rhythm. And the reason it changed my life was not only the way that he played the piano like a percussive instrument, but also he was not using drum kit. He's using a classic Afro-Cuban rhythm section of, as I said, they didn't have bongo player, but they had congas and timbales. So when I made my Jessica Lauren 4 album, I dropped drum kit and I used timbales and bells, whatever, and congas as the basis of the rhythm section and double bass. And it freed up the music in a way that was completely different. So then the bass, instead of the snare and the kick becoming the center of the beat, the bass, repeating bass lines become this solid rock around which we all dance. And Eddie Palmieri gave me that. And I love it with all my heart. And that was a masterclass that changed my world.
Shall we?
This is Chocolate Ice Cream.
1970 Tico Records, Superimposition, Eddie Palmieri, and that's Chocolate Ice Cream. So sleazy.
It really is.
It's
sleazy,
what I like.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
always what I like about Eddie Palmieri and Cal Tjader to a degree as well. Of course, there's that Latin root, you know, the big tap to that, but it's much sleazier and much more space and the dynamics. It's not so cluttered. When you listen to a lot of Fania records, they're very top heavy and they're quite,
Of course,
they're quite
huge horn
cluttered.
sections. There's
Massive.
a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah.
You've got your Montuno keeping on all the time. So it's very busy.
Yeah.
It's very full.
Yeah.
High energy.
Yeah.
Whereas this is extremely dynamic with punches and then pulling back and playing with the time as well as the volume.
Yeah.
And I love all of that stuff. And interestingly, that's a 2-chord tune. Chord, tone down. That's exactly the same as the Israel Tafari tune. 2 chords, 1 tone down. And that is, you know, the magic of music is that you can do the same thing and it's as different as being another planet.
Yeah.
And that's what is so extraordinary about music. Music is magical.
Without a doubt.
Music is magic.
Without
And
a
you
doubt.
don't mess with it.
Serious
You treat
shit.
it with respect.
Totally.
You don't steal it.
Preach, sister. Preach.
You don't steal it
Yep.
and not give credit to the people
You
you're
know what I
stealing
mean?
from. I am influenced by all of these wonderful people and I would be the first to show respect and pay respect because it is spiritual matter. This is important. You don't steal from magicians and the greats. You show respect. And speaking of greats and showing respect, our last tuner.
Now, the man who,
Yeah.
when I first heard you play, I don't know, 35 years ago? I don't know, can't remember. It's been that long. I'm not saying you play like Horace Silver, but as soon as I heard you play the first time, I like, she plays like Horace Silver, which I don't mean you play like Horace Silver. It's that you are, without a doubt, you feel how Horace Silver plays the piano. And what I always loved about Horace Silver and his style of piano is he really makes you understand that the piano is a percussive instrument.
Yes.
Yes, we all forget that. We all think because of in Western music and in classical music, we look at this piano as something very different, but it's got hammers. What do you call the things that hit the string? They're called hammers, right?
Yeah.
So you got the hammers. It's a percussion instrument. And I used to argue with friends of mine. So it's percussion. No, it's not. Yeah, it is. Well, what would you call it? And he plays it like it's a set of congas and a set of bongos and timbalas right across, as if he's got a whole set of drums in front of him. The only difference is it's a piano rather than...
And look at his fingers. So I'm going to go right back to when I learned something really precious that someone gave me about jazz. They said, why don't you try and play flat finger? What I mean by that is, with the Western classical tradition,
the tips?
It's like wrists up.
Yeah.
You sit at the piano.
Yeah.
Everything's sort of
centered.
clenched. Yeah.
Centered.
So it's like riding an English riding saddle, okay?
Opposed to Bill Evans.
Cowboy saddle. Yeah, well, he had a particularly weird stance on a horse, right?
Right.
But if you imagine a slouch saddle in American style, and instead of being all sitting upright with your wrists up, it's like, you watch Count Basie, right?
Yeah.
Just sitting at the piano, he's just playing, and he's going, all right, hey, good to see you. Okay, everyone's relaxed.
Yeah.
And when I sit at the piano, I try and be that, so that people know they can relax from the first chord. They can relax. I'm comfortable. They're comfortable. We're all going to have a good time. My band are amazing. There's percussion. You're going to watch these wonderful musicians who are full of personality and heart, and they're going to communicate with you and to you. And we're going to share this together, and we're going to leave with a smile and hopefully touch their hearts. That's my ethos of what I try to do, to be life affirming in my music. And this flat finger thing. So instead of having your wrists up and sitting upright, it's right, flat finger. He's got these fingers that are unbelievable. When you watch him, just watch him. And the way he's playing and the combination, the taking that hard bop thing, going back to the blues. The blues means so much to me. I went right back to the 20s, to the beginning of recordings, early Sun House and stuff. I worked all my way through Chicago blues, Muddy Waters, my favorite, and Otis Spann, his piano player. These people are all, I've absorbed them with love and wonder, with love and wonder. And Horace's combination of pulling straight ahead back into the hard bop thing together with the other wonderful musicians that were playing at the time, the Lee Morgans and the whoever,
Hank Mobley, played with Miles Davis.
Everybody. Putting the funk back into it.
Yeah.
And then Cannonball, with the band and whatever. And it touched me especially. I could never aspire to play like Bird or Train or any of those people. I didn't have the discipline, the respect I have for people who have that discipline to go there to the high art of bop and spiritual advancement of that and the technical thing. This gave me the sense that it was possible. It was a sound that it was possible to be, to find that combination of jazz sentiment and feeling, but with blues and funk in it and soul
and fun.
His smile and the quotations that he'll give you he'll bring a smile to your face, but at the same time without in any way compromising the serious business of this music.
Yeah.
He was telling his story. He was speaking his truth completely and following his path. And all these people we've been listening to are unique individuals, all of whom have such a strong and unique voice. This is what amazes me about great artists, is you know them from one note. How can you be able to tell a piano player from one note? A trumpeter, I understand, or a sax player, because you've got the embouchure, you've got the thing. But a piano, everyone's got the same piano. You play one note and you can tell who it is. You can tell if it's Horace, or you can tell if it's Errol Garner.
Or McCoy
you can tell
Tyner
if
or
it's Eddie
Herbie.
Palmy.
Absolutely.
Or
Absolutely.
McCoy Tyner. I'm so glad you mentioned McCoy Tyner.
Of course.
You know, he's the giant that goes with John Coltrane and those masters of the most advanced form of jazz.
Absolutely.
You know, of Black American classical music.
And you can always tell George Duke, as we were saying earlier.
Oh,
very distinctive sound.
I can tell George Duke you know, if it was on a jingle for Cocoa Pops, I could tell it was George Duke. You know, we are so blessed that we have lived in a time where there was recording equipment. And it's so, people take this stuff for granted. But remember, from the early 20th century, whether it be Alan Lomax in a car with a 78 recording cutting
going
lathe
around
in
the
the back
country.
of the car,
Yeah.
going into plantations and prison camps and dealing with redneck heads of prison camps or plantations and overseers and trying to persuade them
To let me record.
and capture that. We have this archive that no other time in history has had.
Yeah.
We would not know what they sounded like. We would not know. And this is treasure of the greatest magnitude of our times. So we can, and you put it on, and the great stuff is as powerful every time you put it on. It's still electrifying, and it still touches your very soul.
Taking you back to 1965, the Horace Silver Quintet plus J.J. Johnson. Yeah, I'm cheating because I'm reading the back. Woody Shaw, J.J. Johnson, Joe Henderson, Horace Silver on piano, Bob Cranshaw, and Roger Humphreys on drums. An absolute masterpiece. And while I was doing some research, of course, I love a bit of Horace. We all love a bit of Horace. But I just wanted to do... This guy played, and again, I'm cheating. I'm using my idiot notes here. He played with Kenny Durham, Miles Davis, Art Blakey, Clark Terry, Hank Mobley, Stan Getz, Terry Gibbs, the Adderley Brothers separately and together, Lou Donaldson, Milt Jackson, Quincy Jones, Art Farmer, and then I ran out of space. That is one of the baddest ass motherfuckers that ever tickled the ivories. And I'll challenge anyone to an argument on that. I'm sorry, but I just feel so passionate about this guy. He is just like, I'm getting goosebumps again. Oh, it's been wonderful.
Me too. And I must say, for you to hear Horace in my playing is the greatest compliment. And
but it's very obvious, and you agree.
Well, yeah, I did take a lot from, he was one of my main teachers for a while. I went through a real Horace phase. Yeah. And he taught me, and inevitably that's in there a lot. And, all of these records have seeped into me and they seep out of me.
Well, that was The Dog's Nuts.
Okay.
Thank you so much for coming. It really was wonderful. Your choice, impeccable as I knew it was. The conversation's been amazing.
Thank you.
I can't say thank you enough for being a good friend over the last 30 years or so. And hopefully our friendship continues, and we'll hopefully be able to work again together one of these fine days. You're going to play for us. Yes? Have we got time?
Yeah,
play
we've
out for
got
us?
time.
We've got time. So you're going to play out for us. And I just want to say thank you and good luck with everything going forward, going backwards, going left, going right.
We've got things happening this year, which feels amazing to say, because the last year has been this weird limbo world, Yeah. And I mean, as you say, we're so lucky to have been some of the luckiest ones in the world, you know, in this extraordinary time that
Awful.
we, you know. But yeah, there's lots to look forward to for me for this year, which is wonderful. And I wrote a little piece for you.
Oh, especially for us.
Yeah.
Oh, go on, girlfriend.
Tell me.
Lovely.
And it's called Tell Your Story. I can't remember which record I heard this on. It might have been Art Blakey or someone. Someone's playing a solo and someone shouts from the back, tell your story. I can't remember where it is, but it's something I shout when we're jamming or whatever, or one of the bands playing a solo, and I'll be playing the keys and I might go, tell your story from the back. So I thought I thought it would be appropriate to write a tune for you and call it Tell Your Story.
Thank you, Jess.
And if you look at the little keyboard on the little sound, because I made a sound for it,
Okay.
it's called Tell Your Story.
Go on, girlfriend. Okay.
Thank you for having me, Jean-Claude.
While you get ready, I'm going to say goodbye to everybody and let you
Sweet.
prepare everything.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, sadly, I can't just pull the flute out of the case, because if I'd have been sensible, they say to you, what would you have said to your young self? I would have said, Jessica, it's going to be all right. Dreams can come true. And I would have said, play the flute.
Jess, you superstar. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.
Ciao. Wow. Well, that was an eventful session, wasn't it? Loads of ups and downs and a little bit of an emotional ride there. And the music was, as always with our guests, absolutely impeccable. So please go out and look up the name Jessica Lauren. She's had quite a few albums out. She's been session musicians on loads of projects over the years. Loads of Broken Beat for any of you Broken Beat fans out there. She appears as the keyboardist in some seminal moments. So it just leaves me to say, we will be back soon with another guest. Don't know who it's going to be this time, but you can be sure the music's going to be incredible, and you can be sure the stories and the anecdotes are going to be of a level. So we're going to leave you with Jessica playing us out. Until the next time, love and peace.